言うことは一つだけ。絶対負けねえ。
ヒューガさん、最高のパスを送ります。
How's it going, everyone? This is Nothing Excess here with new player analysis. This time we're going to be analyzing the Dream Collection units in Takeshi's Dream Collection. Takeshi comes with Hiroshi Jito, All Japan's Wall, Robson, England's Barrier, and Mark Owairan, Royal Pride. They are one new unit, the first time that Takeshi has an SSR unit that is not limited, although I guess this is also limited, it's just limited to Dream Collections. And also we have Hiroshi Jito, who is probably one of the best defenders in the entire game, Robson, who is a very great defender in his own right, probably, you know, still in the top tier, and then Mark Owairan, who's a unit. I'm also going to be talking a little bit about some terms that we use, because I see that some people have been having issues with some of the terms that I use in some of the videos, so we're going to cover them real quickly before we continue with everything. We're going to be talking real quick about these terms and what they mean so that you can better use the videos, and I'll make a little separate video about what terms it is that I use in the channel, but I just want to cover them here real quick as a general idea in case maybe you guys were confused about some other terms I might use. You might have a guide for the future. Now, for the terms, I've got different kinds of roles. I'll talk about them real quick. A buffer is a unit who strengthens other players as a core feature. Almost all hidden ability players fit in this category in some way. A good example of that would be Roberto. Clogger is a unit that specifically serves to get in the way of other units, mostly passively. This is basically characters that have automatic pass cuts, sometimes auto blocks as well. They're mostly attacking midfielders and defensive midfielders, but you do find them in defenders sometimes. A good example of this, for example, in a defender would be Dream Collection Ishizaki. A defense, obviously, is a player that's mostly expected to actively spend most of their stamina on defensive abilities. This doesn't have to be specifically a defender, but it does mostly consist of defenders and defensive midfielders. You do find some attacking midfielders in here sometimes. Very rarely will you find a forward. For example, Red Victorino would be a forward who's primarily focused on defense. An enabler is a player that's mostly expected to actively spend most of their stamina on abilities that move the ball forward, usually to other players. A good analog to actual soccer teams would be the role of playmaker. Enablers almost never shoot themselves, although a character can be an enabler and a striker, for instance. Although in that case, if they are an enabler and a striker, but also they can play defense, that's technically a utility player, but it is what it is. Anyways, they are mostly attacking midfielders and defensive midfielders. Occasionally you have forwards who are enablers. A debuffer is a player who weakens enemy units as a core feature. Many hidden ability players fit in this category in some way. For example, Nambasa is a debuffer. Longshot is a unit who has access to a long shot and expected to play a position where he'll use it. Mostly attacking midfielders and defensive midfielders, and sometimes defenders. Roberto Carlos is a perfect example of someone whose primary role is that of a long shooter. Skills is a unit who has valuable skills and may be used primarily to extract them. Sometimes the unit has more value for their skills and for the ability to extract those skills rather than playing the actual unit outright. The Junior Youth Hyuga is a good example of this, although the best example so far has been the extreme event Hino Ryoma. Striker is a unit who primarily shoots and does so mostly from inside the box due to the range limits. That means that they don't really have a long shot, and if they do, they still want to use it really, really close up front. Mostly limited to forwards. Every now and then you have an attacking midfielder. Technically, for example, hidden ability Misaki is a striker, even though he's not in the forward position. His job is to score, and so he's a striker. I know that goes against the logical term of striker, which is a kind of forward. But in this case, we refer to striker as a role as anyone who's primarily expected to score. Utility is a player that does a lot of things decently as opposed to being locked into one particular role. In this case, we've got El Cid Pierre, the old blue one. When played with Napoleon, he's basically a Swiss Army knife. He does a bunch of everything. Generally not really a shooter, but he can do basically everything else pretty well, and so he uses a bunch of different skills really well. Then we have some other terms that aren't exactly roles. For example, GFB. A GFB stands for Go for Broke. This sort of values whether the unit's a must-have or not if you're anywhere close to the color archetype of the player in question. Yes means it's probably worth spending for, unless usually because the player is meta-changing. I very rarely write yes unless you really must have this character, especially if it's close to what you need. maybe means it might be worth spending saved up dream balls because it might really help your team if you're in the same color archetype. You'll see a lot of players that aren't double S here that are A or S. Some S's I feel are kind of must-have if you're trying to play that color, and some I feel that they're not. But usually like a double S is always a yes. But an S is not always a yes, sometimes a maybe. An A very rarely would be a yes. Sometimes it's actually a no, but sometimes is usually a maybe. And usually everything else is a no. And what no means is it's only worth pulling if you really need them, like if they fit something you're trying to personally build, or if you really want them, like there's your favorite character and you must have every copy of this character. Or generally to just not be mad if you don't get them. Like if you pull and they don't come out, well, whatever. Don't be salty. And finally, the limit break grid. This isn't specific to my video, but usually when I talk in the comments or when I post on Reddit, the limit break grid is the way that I write out limit breaks. You're going to see them written in a way where it's a grid of 9 numbers, which is a 3x3 grid. It refers to the way that limit break screen is laid out in the actual game itself. It refers to how many points you should put in each spot relative to its position. So the above limit break that I have listed here, which is 2203, 25025, 2203, it would be read as 22 dribble, 3 speed, 25 shot, 25 power, 22 pass, and 3 technique. With that out of the way, let's start talking about Takeshi. Takeshi Sawada, the trustworthy friend, he is an attacking midfielder or a defensive midfielder, depending on what you need. Basically, what if I told you that Clab had finally designed a player who didn't get better when someone specific was on the field, but specifically made another player better due to his presence? Sawada is that player. He's basically Hyuga's personal true captaincy Tsubasa that he carries around in his pocket. He gives any version of Hyuga you put him next to a powerful 5 to 10% buff. Is a great idea if you're playing Hyuga. He himself is missing defining features to make him excellent. He's kind of like a slightly weaker World Youth Misaki. And his passive is a little harder to engage. He has nice stats, but they're crippled by the fact that none of his main offensive skills really reach 400 momentum, save for a 1-2 that you could pull from the 2017 Samurai Takeshi. So if you do have that guy, I hope you have 2, because otherwise you can't really use it unless you don't mind killing a unit that's not a dupe and getting rid of a collectible. If you run Hyuga, he's mandatory, but without him, he's just basically a slightly weaker World Youth Misaki. And, there's a lot of explanations why I could give that, like why World Youth Misaki is so much better, but a lot of it boils down to being better out of the gate and also having a passive that that just generally makes him stronger against half of the cast, and not needing to specifically build him a very specific way, shoehorning him into a very difficult build of only junior youth players. And also the fact that he comes with a much better S-Pass and has access to much better skills, and so in general is just overall much better. Pros 5 to 10% buff to Hyuga is no joke. All that said, that's pretty strong. He's pretty good on his stat balance. 10.7k pass is nice. 8.3k dribble, 8.7k intercept. His hidden ability evolution medals cost league coins instead of tons of farming. He's got cute eyes too. Shout out to Sarah from Clab. Cons, right now his passive is bad. His team skills questionable, and his non-Hyuga hidden abilities can only be counted on to buff himself and maybe 1 or 2 other players, and therefore I think it should have been a little bit better. Or different, it should just give him more interesting stuff. His skill levels are way too low to take advantage of his stats, and they should have given him like 500 points more tackle or something. It would have been much better there. For his limit break, I'd do pass intercept technique max. I would do 25 speed, if only because I want him to be a little bit faster so he can take better advantage of just trying to get it to matchups faster. But you could also do like a 8-8-9 dribble tackle speed if that's what you're about. Now, his hidden abilities, all stats plus 5 is basically for Hyuga alone. It makes Hyuga 5% stronger, and that's crazy good no matter which way you slice it. It's just that ability alone makes him mandatory in any mono blue team with Hyuga in it, and it makes him a very important player on any team that uses Hyuga in general, even if it's like Rainbow Japan or like non-mono blue Japan that just has Hyuga in it. And now for the other ones, my stats plus 5%, but it has a 50% activation rate. So it's the same buff, but it activates, all hell breaks loose because Hyuga is crazy strong. But when it doesn't, you'll just be like, why does Clab do this? Why does Klab make it so that there's coin flips in this game? Coin flips are kind of dumb, whatever. Then there's my team, all stats plus 1%. It's, I rate it A because basically since you only buff other All Japan Junior Youth units, that just means basically you always have 1% free stats for yourself. And maybe some other units, like maybe you're stuck using the SGGK Genzo, so that's nice. So that helps units on the field. Now, that might sound really useful. It's not that good. K-Lab may just not be trying to design themselves into a corner with wide-reaching buffs. Like, maybe they just didn't want to give them some crazy stuff. But half-hearted attempts are a little tilting, particularly when the second one's all stats +1, except with a 50% activation rate. There's a lot, you know, there was a lot of creative stuff going on here, like making him buff Hyuga instead of anything else specific. But then I feel like the other half, they just kind of just phoned it in. They were just like, yeah, whatever. So it's the same buff with a 50% activation rate. Who knows why they didn't do anything more interesting, but it is what it is. For his stats, 989 stamina is the highlight. He's actually almost at 1,000. That's pretty great. Before you actually hit an ability, this guy, he's like a 41k unit, but once you do hit him with a hidden ability evolution, he becomes a 50k unit. Like strictly better stat-wise base than True Captain Tsubasa. His pass is 10.7k. No shot to speak of, but 8.3k dribble, 8.7k intercept, and almost relevant 7.7k tackle. Not too shabby. For a skill build, you probably want to keep solid pass and S swift interception. You may want to give him the S skill dribble, find a Toho's golden duo if you can't find the S one, and a strong tackle, which he comes with. Just keep it there. Basically, leveling up S solid pass is going to feel awful because it's all you can do if you actually want him to have a useful pass, while also maintaining some level of skill diversity, because you don't want to give him a second pass. That would feel terrible. You're also going to need that advantage of having, you know, different skills, because unless you really invest in his S pass, which is going to feel bad again, you're going to have to rely on outsmarting every player you run into, because you don't have that many stats, and eventually you're just going to get bullied out by someone. I mean, Dream Collection Matsuyama is just going to come and just rip your legs off, and you're just going to stare at him and be like, well, what did I do to deserve this? On the flip side, he's adorable, so I don't know. For his role, he is a utility player and also a buffer. I rate him A. He would have been S with, I don't know, a new pass that was like 420 or something. Even if they gave him like a 415 pass, I would have felt better. If he had access to an A pass that was better, I would have liked him more. If Toho's Golden Duo, there was like an S version floating around that wasn't on a limited unit from 2017, I'd feel better about it. All things that I wish were different, and they're not. So it is what it is. Should you go for broke for him? Maybe if you're running blue, and only if you're running blue and you already have Dreamfest Hyuga, then I feel like sure, go for it. But if you don't have Dreamfest Hyuga yet, maybe pick him up if you can, and he comes out, and that way you could just kind of have him like chilling nearby. But for the eventuality that you do actually get a blue Hyuga you want to play, he will make your other blue Hyugas better though. So like if you're trying to run like the Toho Hyuga, the one that's either the one that kills Tsubasa for some reason, or the one that is the cash shop one, that might actually be worth it, because it makes those strong enough that maybe you might feel like they're worth starting on a blue team, especially a blue Japan team that maybe doesn't have Dreamfest Hyuga yet. So if you have a Hyuga, he's worth pulling for, and if you don't, kind of chill for a little bit. Anyways, I rate him an A. He's pretty good, but he's not crazy. You know, he's like a good for a Dream Collection character. It's what I would more or less expect a Dream Collection character to come out, somewhere between the A to S. Next up, we have Hiroshi Jito, and boy is he crazy. He's a perfectly balanced defender that absolutely murders the opponent if they guess right, or rather, if Jito guesses right. Jito's stats are well balanced across all of his defensive abilities. He has some really strong skills to back all of that up, except for his interception, which sucks. But it doesn't matter, he has high intercept and a good passive, so woo. Sliding dash block isn't as strong as high power block, but since it's 70 stamina cheaper for only 10 momentum weaker, or for only a 10 momentum hit, sorry, he has Insight Master 75%, so basically you're going to overcome any difference so long as you guess right. So that's a nice skill. Many people are going to load him up with A skills on defense, but they shouldn't be remiss to give him some good A skills on offense. He's capable of distributing out of a matchup as long as it's one forward and as long as you guess right. You could just dribble when they expect a pass cut, and you just smoke him, and then you white pass the ball away. That's a thing you could do. Anyways, for pros, 9.4k cut, 9.5k block, and 9.3k tackle is very balanced. And with 75% Insight Master and a full complement of defensive skills, that's strong. He can be hard to white pass over with forwards because he does have pretty decent base cut, and you can make it better. He's probably Red Japan's best defender overall. He has like 1,000 limit breaks depending on who you ask. Now for cons, it'd be nice if he had a nicer pass cut than a forcible interception, but the passive still makes it usable. Also, he's still susceptible to good attacking midfielders white passing him. Now, I've got 3 limit breaks for him. I have a balanced one, which is a 25 tackle, 25 block, 25 intercept, and then 9 speed, 8 power, 8 technique. This is very, very even. It gives you like 1200 to each stat. It's pretty strong. It's a pretty good limit break if you want to make sure that everything is advanced more or less the same, and you take more speed because more speed is more valuable. Now, if you're trying to go cut heavy, particularly because you don't want to get white passed over, you could go 25-25 intercept technique, and then 2203 block power, 2203 tackle speed. Or you could also go with the I'll send them flying build, which is basically tackle heavy, tackle 25, speed 25, block power 2203, intercept technique 2203. For his stats, he's got 1013 stamina. That's a great amount of stamina for a Jito. Jito generally, historically, hasn't had great stamina. And his stats, again, pretty average on offense, but pretty great on defense, which results in 9.3k tackle, 9.5k block, 9.4k intercept. He's also pretty decent at clearing the ball and can trap the ball on defense in a weird situation where the defenders have priority on the ball. He's also good at high balls, and so he'll do well trying to defend against people trying to overhead like Hino or something. He can definitely stop that, especially with Inside Master. Now for a skill build, S sliding dash block, obviously you can't do anything about it, and it's good, so he'll fit right in. A forcible interception, there's nothing better we could put it there. If there was like those little tricks ain't gonna work, then that would be great. But since that's not there, when it comes out, teach it to him. Otherwise, just keep forcible interception there for now. A high power tackle is pretty good if you have a version that you could level up easily and you don't already have an A 80 power tackle waiting to go. You might want to just go with high power tackle. Then A strong pass, which you could pull from a couple of different versions, and A high power dribble, which I do believe you can also pull from different versions. That dribble will be a good option for the mix-up in case you have to clear the ball or get the ball out of there with Jito. You have to do some attacking with him. That is a nice little option, and A strong pass is also a nice little option. His role is defense. He is a defender. I think he's double S. I think he's one of the there's a bunch of different double S defenders in the game, and he's not at the top of the list, but because he's so crazy versatile and because he beats people up as long as he guesses right, and he has the stats that if you level up his skills, he might be able to even bully on wrong guesses. He's just really, really strong. I recommend him to anybody who's playing Red, but particularly Red Japan. Should you go for broke? I think he's actually the prize of this banner. Takeshi's quite nice, you know, for like a support unit, but this guy will carry a team sometimes to victory just by himself. Next up, we've got Robson, England's barrier. He is an old Dream Collection. He's one of the first Dream Collection problems that the game saw because he's such a good blocker. In raw stats, he's still the best blocker in the game, so if you give him perfect block, he's probably actually the best blocker in the game overall. I still think that post-limit break, Green Jito is better. And when I say Green Jito, I mean the green chest Jito that came in the World Cup 2018 banner. But it is what it is. There's not a lot else to say about Robson. He's kind of as big of a one-trick pony as any character can get. You just take your blocking stat and throw it at every problem in the game. Make sure you get the gacha versions block on him, the one that's 455, because it's also cheaper. And so it makes it crazy good. Also, the animation's cooler. So it is what it is. And since he has no stamina, you're going to need that. He's kind of susceptible to getting white passed over, and also every time he takes any action, because stamina is so low, he makes it harder for himself to be able to use multiple skills. And that's pretty rough. So you want to limit break him on pass cut probably to shore up that particular weakness of getting passed over very easily. You're also probably going to use a block in any matchup anyway, even though you have 8.4k tackle. So just throw blocks at everything, and hopefully limit breaking for intercept will help. If not, maybe limit breaking for tackle. I'll explain in a second. Anyways, for pros, when people think of good blockers, is a character that comes in mind because he's the #1 blocker at 11,668 stats. And he has an even better S block available than his default one via a gacha unit. And that one's 5 momentum higher, but 15 stamina cheaper, so that's nice. Also, he's decent at tackling with 8.4k tackle, and he kills red units slightly at 5%. Also, Khan, he sort of exists in the other categories. Like, he doesn't really do anything in them. He's just there like, hey guys. He's probably the first of the overtuned Dream Collection units that came out. I doubt he'll ever get a buff anytime soon because his blocking's so crazy. So unless to adjust a slightly bad passive, I don't think he'll get touched. Also, his stamina sucks. So for this limit break, I did 25 speed, 25 block, 25 power, and 22-3 intercept technique. If you don't care about the intercept, you really just want him to block, and you don't care that you might get white pass over, you could do tackle 25, speed 25, block 25, power 25. I wouldn't personally recommend it. I try to make it harder for people to just swipe pass over him, but it is up to you whether you think that is value or not. Stamina 972, it's a sub 900 character. He has trashy pass, trashy dribble, it's kind of non-existent. 8.4k tackle, 7.8k intercept, and 11.6k block. As we mentioned, the block is number 1 in the game in just raw numbers. For a skill build, you can't do anything about high power block, so try to leave it there without touching as long as you can get S perfect block. Then teach him A high power tackle, which I think he comes with, A forcible interception, which he also comes with, and then teach him A high power block. If you can use the A block instead of the S block and it'll probably work, try to do it. Otherwise, you want perfect block because it is cheaper and better than the S skill he comes with. Forcible interception sucks, but it's what he's got. You're mainly going to limit break interception to be more resilient to white passing. The reason for speed is also so you can close the gap faster and not be in a situation where you can easily get white passed over. It's better to get to the matchup quickly and try to force the ball from your opponent. He used to be double S, but there's so many different new defenders and the meta has shifted enough that he's no longer double S class, but he's brushing up against it. I just rate him like a really high S. He's still a huge problem for most players that are trying to deal with blue. And so he's still up there. He's still viable. If you need a blue defender, I would go for Broke. He's probably the first person that comes to mind when people think blue defenders. There are characters that are probably a little bit better, like maybe like a Dream Collection Vulcan, the blue one. But I think this is the one that is the most reliable, straightforward, and so long as you've got the stamina, strongest. Finally, we've got Owairan, Royal Pride. I don't really know how to rate him. He's not very good. He's a 10k long shooter with an okay long shot and a really strictly okay shooting stat. He's got a bit of every kind of skill for every kind of situation. He could dribble, pass, tackle, or cut. But he's not very good at any of those things until you spend a bit of stamina, and he doesn't ever really get that much better at dribbling or passing either. He's got 50,278 total stats, but it feels like a mismanaged lie. I want to like him more than I do, and I use him a lot in PvP for quite a long time because I value what he brought to my team at the time. But nowadays I just don't see it, and it wasn't even that long. He didn't take long for him to get pushed aside by like Zhao and all these other units. So I think he's just too basic for anyone's taste. If you put him at defensive midfielder and you gas him early by using him constantly as your primary big skill user on defense, he will be tired but more effective for most of the match. So he's probably good and worth for a couple of those clutch moments. For his pros, he's got a 455 momentum long shot at 10k club. He's got 8.8k Pasca and 8.4k tackle, and he gets stronger the more gas he is. Now for cons, he's sort of whatever at dribble and pass. Even though those are the only other two skills you want to give him, it's hard to consider him a utility player in that regard. He's primarily a take the ball and shoot kind of player, but he doesn't have the blowaways that like Brian does to really try and force the issue, so it is what it is. For his limit break, I do 22-3 tackle speed, 22-3 intercept technique, and then all out on shot and power because you are definitely going to be letting go of the ball primarily through shooting unless you see an opportunity that you can take really good advantage of. For his stamina, 977, pretty good. For his stats, 7.5k dribble, 7.7k pass, not quite much, but 10,000 shot almost on the mark. He has 8.4k tackle and 8.8k intercept and an uninteresting amount of block. For a skill build, S Sandstorm shot, you can't do anything with it, but it's pretty nice, so, you know, cool. A cross defense, pretty great. It is a great A tackle. The S version is also something you could give him, but I have the, and that's what I have, but the A cross defense will work just fine if you can spare the black balls. A calculated interception, it would be much better if there was a way to get copies of it. Instead, you have to only spend black balls on it, which feels rough, but it is what it is. A rolling dribble, which you can farm with SR units, which is pretty cool, and it's also a very good dribble. It's also very cool looking. And a precise pass. It is a pass. It's like 250 or something for an A pass, which is low, but it works. It's kind of crappy. He's such an otherwise decent looking unit and also a cool character because he has access to one of every skill you really want in a player, like this one. He could shoot, he could tackle, he could cut, he could dribble, he could pass, and it sure would be great if he could do all of these just a little bit better, particularly the offense ones that aren't shooting related. They even trying to make him work. His base block is low at 4,756, so I'm not sure why they didn't commit and just make it much lower and split the difference on his other attacking skills or just add it to shot. He'd be a great utility player if that was the case, and he'd also be a much better long shooter. Instead, he just feels a little bit more confused in that. He seems way scarier later in the game because of his passive, but by then most opponents have already done their damage and it'll be hard to come back. I rate him a B. I don't think you should go for broke if you're looking for Owairan. Just if you get him, cool. If not, whatever. He is attacking midfielder and a defensive midfielder. Roll again, long shooter, and defense. Anyways, everybody, that's it for now. Those are the 4 units in this Dream Collection. There's not going to be gacha I pulled it kind of off screen. I just wanted to see if I would get Takeshi or anything in this unit. The only unit I have is Owairan. I don't really need anyone. I was just hoping maybe I could get Takeshi to make the challenge road a little bit easier. I am going to upload some PvP videos soon, so look out for those. They're my second and my third matches in the tournament that Huang Le is running. Also, I have another match up later against Albert from the Science, so look forward to that. I haven't played him yet, so I'm not gonna, wish me luck. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought of the video in the comments. Tell me what you think about the reviews. Tell me if you find any of the reviews at any point laughable, and we'll discuss it. It is what it is. So yeah, just let me know. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed the content. Remember to click subscribe if you haven't done so already, so you can get more of my content to your YouTube directly to your phone or something. I don't know. But if you want alerts as to when I release stuff, make sure you go ahead and click the little bell icon. That is what the bell icon is for. It lets people it lets people know when I upload stuff. And finally, if you want to become a channel member, there is a link to the gaming part of YouTube in the description of the channel. You can click there and you go click join. It's $5 a month, basically USD, or it might be a little bit different depending on where you're from. But basically, you support me monthly. It's really cool. You get a cool chat icon for the stream, and also you get privileges like being able to bug me whenever you want on Discord for questions and advice. I help all of my channel members. There's only like 4 of them right now. Normally I shout them out, but I'm kind of falling asleep. I did not have a great day today. I'm kind of using all of my energy right now into this video. I didn't have the foresight to keep the members open, so sorry about that. Anyways, guys, thanks for coming out here, and I hope to see you guys soon.